Sons of prostitutes, how do you feel about what your mother did? I despise that wretched piece of shit, and every day I don't hear she hasn't died yet haunts me. She dropped me off at my great-aunt's doorstep when I was a year old. She convinced me to run away from my abusive great-aunt's home at 15 to live with her. None of this is in order, just wrote as I remembered things. Different scumbag dudes every night. One of them came into my room and pointed a pistol at my face. All my belongings worth anything were sold for drugs. Was left at home for days, sometimes a week or so alone. Cupboards were locked shut, I wasn't allowed to eat. She tried to stab me multiple times and threw me off the second-story balcony of our apartment. I had to pull a heroin needle out of her arm when I found her passed out on the kitchen floor. She got me a puppy and would spread peanut butter on the other side of my bedroom door to make my dog freak out every night, then eventually fed it crack and God knows what else, which killed my poor little Bailey. She'd threatened to murder me and dispose of my body under a certain spot so people would walk over my grave daily and have no clue. She eventually took a pocket knife of mine and rammed it through her own hand, hiding the knife under my pillow, and claimed to police I raped her to get rid of me. She was in the process of trying to sell me to some strange man. Booty talked to the police when they questioned me, and they took me to a bus station to escape her after she ran from the cops. I traveled a few provinces across Canada on the Greyhound for almost a week with no food or money to my grandfather's in a small town, whose girlfriend not long after dropped me off in my hometown at a youth shelter in the city where I became homeless. 15 years later I've got my shit together through all the trauma, and I've never been the same since the worst 6 months of my life. I'll only go to her funeral to make sure it's actually her in the coffin. So I'm not 1000% sure. I was pretty young, but I do have some memories that stand out to me as I got older. The main two being I never had a permanent father figure, and one night I woke up to loud arguing with whom I now know was a pimp, and it got physical to the point where he brought in extra people and tattooed my mom with POS, which stands for property of he who won't be named. A friend has a mom who is a meth head and prostitute. From his descriptions, she's in rough shape, homelessness, ill health, $10 blowjobs in alleys. He is married and stable. He goes out 2 to 3 nights a week looking for her. When he finds her, he gives her money, gets her to eat, tries to get her off the street. Many times she doesn't recognize him. I asked him why. It's futile, and he knows it. He said, "It's my mom, as long as she and I are alive I can't stop trying." Well, guess it's my time to shine. My mom had me with my father. From the beginning she was using my father. He loved her, she loved money and partying. Before my father and myself, she had a baby with her pimp who she was in love with. My brother was her favorite, 'cause she loved her pimp. At about 3 to 4 years old my mom and dad broke up and she kicked me and my father out. We ended up homeless and sleeping on couches till my father met my stepmom. But as much as my stepmother loved my father and I, my dad was still obsessed with my mom. Which led to him having an affair with her. My real mom ends up lying to my dad, telling him the baby she was having was his. He tells my stepmom the truth and of course she leaves. We begin couch surfing again, but this time with my mom and brother. My dad starts a cleaning company and we are able to rent and begin to have a semi-normal life. But then the market crash of the 2000s led my father to lose the company. As my dad lost jobs, the money we had my mother wasted on everything but bills. When my father found out, it was far too late. Months in debt, we lost everything. My mother fled to Florida, but before leaving she let my dad know his daughter wasn't his. She tried to convince me to leave my dad, but I knew going with her would be a terrible idea. So I sank with the ship she abandoned with my dad. I don't care that she was a prostitute, but I do care that she was a terrible mother. I found it pretty terrible at the time. I find it even worse today. Back when I was 8 years old, we had to move out from our house with my whole family because my mother kicked my father from the house he was paying the rent for. Living in France, we were able to get social help since she was a lonely parent without work and we could afford a small flat with a little food. Walls were very thin. What I mean by that is that everything that would happen in the room next to the one you were in, you could hear everything. And my bedroom was in the middle of my older brother's and my mother's room. I could hear people entering the room, doing their stuff with my own mother before a few minutes of silence and another man getting in. And I heard that for 2 years until my mother found out I was diabetic, said that she couldn't take care of me anymore and kicked me out so that my father could take me back with him. I feel mostly terrible about what she did because she wasn't even using this money to buy my brothers and I essential things like clothes, food, or anything. Instead, she was using it in gambling and her drug addiction. I never heard from her after that. And it's better this way. My mother was a prostitute in the Dallas/Fort Worth area in the 90s and early 2000s. I spent the majority of my time with her going place to place and watching it all unfold. I would carry about a little Jansport backpack with a NASCAR VHS, some action figures and cars, and everything seemed okay even though Elle knew it wasn't the normal of everyone else. Days would go where Elle would see my mom, or I would just sit kinda bumble around hitting up the 7-Elevens, stuffing candy bars into big gulps. It was a really odd childhood, but I did, and still do love my mother dearly. We had a strange bond in a mother-son way, but I don't know it was odd as a kid, but I always knew mom would be there. We would normally get Happy Meals the day after and it was really rad. I struggled through my teenage years as I learned about sex and whatnot, people making your mom jokes, and it was just always hard to work through that. I still hold my mother in such high regard because I feel like she did the best she could for a drug-addicted prostitute. I'm in therapy now to work through that and other childhood trauma, and it's been good. Edit. It's actually been really nice and refreshing to share all of this with you. I have some writings I've been working on from this time. I would love to share them if anyone is interested. Also, some have mentioned doing an AMA. If people see interested, I'm down. Not the son but the grandson. She had prostituted when she was younger. When I knew her, she was a strong Christian, and I didn't find out about that part of her past till I was older. There was a story that she had told that came into focus when I was older though. She told the story of being together with my grandfather and how she was with this rich guy. She would host his parties and go out with him all the time, but Grandpa was in love with her and wanted her to marry him. The story was Grandpa and the rich guy had a confrontation, and the rich guy said what could he give her that Grandpa couldn't. Grandpa said a family for her and her kids. Grandma chose the poor army serviceman, aka my grandpa. In hindsight, Grandma was the rich guy's paid mistress that he took to parties and out on the town. Grandma was apparently a real looker back in the day. As a kid, I was confused on why the rich guy wouldn't marry her if he liked her. I never asked directly. So what do I think? Times we tough. She did what she had to do to support her kids on her own, and when she found true love, she left it all behind and built a family. Mom was a porn star in the 70s/80s. Did stuff with Ron Jeremy and the like. It was always a very taboo thing growing up, but my dad tried to prepare us for bullies at school due to the town being fully aware of what she did. No bullies. I grew up with a guy whose mother was a prostitute. It did not end well. He was abused by multiple men. She was a severe drug addict. Last I knew, my friend was in prison. The mom has long since been dead from an overdose. Mine didn't walk the streets, but she slept with men when we needed money or food. She hid it pretty well. We always thought these men were being nice and just giving us money. Now that I look back on it, it all makes sense. She passed 10 years ago and I am thankful to her for it. My aunt was a prostitute and she killed her son as well as her 2 daughters, so I'll speak for them. The oldest daughter was a little older than me and she hated her life with her mom. My family and our grandmother stepped in to help raise them, and we all wish we adopted them before the tragedy. This isn't an anti-sex work viewpoint, it's just my family's story. My aunt had a lot wrong with her. Bastard son of a Thai prostitute here, no idea who my real dad was, but luckily one of my mom's clients fell in love with her, married her and adopted me. When things went bad, he got custody of me and got me the fuck out of there. He was a terrible dad over the years, but I'm forever grateful for the fact I'm where I am now cause of him. I'm now a dad myself and making sure I don't make any of the same mistakes. Didn't think I'd ever see the day where other people would be talking about this. I am a son of a prostitute and I've literally seen it all growing up. I can remember being left in a trap house and my mom telling me she'd be back in a few hours. Little did I know she wouldn't be coming back for a few days. I can vividly remember eating stuffed Oreos for days and hating them. For some odd reason I had strong mother son bond with her, although she put me through the most difficult times. And it never really went out. I haven't seen her in about 10 years now, through various prison movements, and coronavirus she is seemingly unfindable. Out of all the crazy shit I seen because of her, I still feel sorry for her and love her just like I did was little. I truly don't hold any resentment for her actions anymore, I forgive her. Though, she put me through a lot, I wouldn't wish any negative energy upon her. Yeah, not my mom, but do have a story. In my high school everyone found out one of the girls' mom had been in a porno movie. Nothing really happened until one of the boys got said tape and decided to throw it on during a school presentation. The girl basically ran off crying during the assembly and transferred to another school quite far away. It's a shame because she was real nice. I heard later on the same thing happened and she went into private tuition. The whole ordeal followed her like a curse. Made from Korean War. Mom was traded off at 5 years old to pay a gambling debt to a bar. After turning 13, she was old enough to work front of bar instead of cleaning and cooking. Had me when she was 15. Father was an American helicopter pilot that took her from bar and stationed her on base with a job in cafe. War ended, life changed. Mother is a rock. I'm a daughter of one, but anyways, sorry if this is messy. Mom still is one and has been her / my whole life. I'm still kinda young, 18, soul don't think grasp it very well, but it's embarrassing and I hate that look so much like her. Even though I cut ties with her, I've run into older men that recognize me because of my mom. My boyfriend is a tattoo artist and he tattoos old clients of my mom that used to give me money for Christmas when I was a kid. I just feel like I can never get away from her. I think she did it because that was the quickest path to a better life, and I'm not embarrassed by it. She was from a very poor family in Seoul, so it would have been impossible for her to claw her way out of poverty. My dad was drafted into the army at the tail end of Vietnam, and ended up stationed at the DMZ in Korea. He has always been very shy and socially awkward, so my guess is he met her at a brothel there. She thought he was some rich American soldier, and decided it was a way to get to the US for her and her family. He was not rich, and when she figured as much, having been in the US for a while, she went back to what she knew and opened a brothel in a truck stop town under the backdrop of a gym. She was the madam, but this was in another state, so we started living apart as a family. Elle only got to see her a week at a time, many months apart from then on. I was fairly young, Seoul never really knew what was really going on, but I think it was more of a happy ending kind of place. She got into drugs and just disappeared one day. I had always assumed she was murdered, but my sister recently told me my dad elaborated on how bad her drug problem was, and kind of alluded to her contracting HIV and committing suicide. He never dated or remarried. It certainly affected me tremendously, but it mostly makes me sad. I've only ever wanted to have a more normal family life like my friends and cousins from my dad's side. I have that now with a loving wife and kids, but it'll always be damaged goods. I don't screw them up. My mother did what she felt she had to, and I love and miss her. It's very hard to not know what really happened and to probably never have any closure from a difficult situation.